Okay, we're live. It all came together in the end. Hooray! I'm here with Gick. How you, Gick?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I have. I did not sleep last night.
I noticed.
Well, I slept for like 20 minutes before, but other than that, no. Um, I was going through the backlogs of all the vehicles. I never logged. I made a dent in them. There were like 360, and now there's only 315. And all I had to do was stay up all night working constantly. So if I do that like six more times, I might catch up.
6 more times this week? I recommend that. I totally do.
Oh boy. It's still working. So the reason I did it was to get these vehicle stats for the month of January. Here I will show them in a moment. There's a button. Click. Okay, there it is. Um, so there's this vehicle stat. This is like a bar chart of all the days, right? Um, so yeah, this is just like at a glance how many vehicles they lost per day. Earlier today, I tweeted a similar chart when I'm still sleep deprived, but I was even more sleep deprived then because I didn't get that 20-minute nap, you know? So I didn't notice that an entire day was missing. It was the 14th. I don't know how. I think what happened on the 14th is that on that day we got like all we found were like 10 loafs, and then in subsequent days we found like another 40 vehicles or whatever another 20 or whatever. So hey, hi CJ.
Hello. I hope I didn't miss the D30 convention.
Oh no, no. Would you like to talk about D30s?
I would, if you've already covered that part of the map, I would love to hear you
Oh.
describe it once more, and specifically this weird phenomenon we're seeing as of recently.
All right. So okay. So I haven't even touched on that. So okay. So first off, I just want to check to see if it's working. Can one of you talk? I just want to make sure it's working because sometimes I just talk to myself like a schizophrenic person. You know.
I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. There you go. Everything's working. It's great. Um. Okay. So about 3 weeks ago, Russia delivered a trainload of D30s. I believe it was 35. I believe they 35 D30s, and they delivered them to this Kherson area. Um, uh, they delivered it to this Kherson area from Zhenkoi, which is fed from across the Kerch Bridge. So it came from a train from like Russia to Zhenkoi and then up to Kherson. So they delivered 35 guns 3 weeks ago. So Ukraine is saying, and Gick, I'm kind of curious what you think about this, but Ukraine is saying that over the past week or so, they've destroyed 40 D30s in this Kherson area. Um, what do you think of that, Gick? That number?
I, yeah. I mean, we do see them target D30s frequently, but we also sometimes geolocate the gun somewhere and the shelling somewhere else. So we do see quite a lot of claimed hits on D30s, but not in that range.
This one,
I would argue.
this is our best evidence. This D30 right here, which was a legit D30. Like he could watch the video and see it definitely is one, and it definitely got hit, and it was probably pretty badly damaged. So the the location of this D30 is rather interesting because it's very close to the front and nowhere near Krinky. So it's just kind of like over here by itself. Not really sure what it's shooting at. I guess he could be shooting at Berislav. They do shell Berislav. They shell Vesele and Kozatska and I guess they shelled these islands too. So I don't know. This is kind of the backstory. They delivered 35 guns. That was apparently their shipment of guns, and they've lost 40 of them apparently. Or at least that's what the Ukrainians are saying, and they lost 40 in a week. So anyway, so that's kind of the backstory. CJ, what would you like? Is there anything you'd like to talk about regarding these D30s?
I guess it depends. Have you gone over before the shelling reports in Kherson for January?
Oh, I have not. So the governor of Kherson, he stated yesterday that there were 13,741 shells. He counted with his clipboard. Shells fired into Kherson. Now we get shelling reports pretty regularly. They shell appear, Russo-Ukrainian, all the way down, like every single one of these towns, all the way down to like around here, to like Stanislav. So every single town along the river is getting shelled. Not necessarily every day, but every few days per town. And they're also shelling pretty not just the ones that are immediately adjacent to the river. They also shell kind of some of these ones a little bit further inland. Like yesterday, we had this video from Avdiivka, where they were shelling boats, basically. I don't really know why, but so yeah, they've been shelling this whole Kherson area pretty constantly, and most especially Kherson itself, where I believe he also said they've wounded 122 civilians, and I think 22 or 23 of them died. I think I have to, yeah. So 23 of them died. So anyway, if you go to my map and you click this a month of heavy shelling button, you can read the source. It's Alexander Prokudin, or whatever his name is. Anyway, so what do you think of those numbers? Firing 13,000 shells and only wounding 122 people?
Well, really, I'm just left scratching my head. I mean, I'm a fan of artillery, but not when it's used against civilians, and not when they're also 60-year-old guns. I mean, these D30s are, somewhat laughable considering how much Russia had moved away from using them, especially if you look at the initial months of the war. They were not really using them that much, but now they seem to be more and more common. And likewise, 2S1s, the 122 millimeter equivalent, are used more and more. So, my first question is, where are these guns coming from? And the second, where is the ammo, right? Because you don't do this on a whim. This is somewhat of like a massive logistical effort. And why not do it in other places? Why not have these guns in Avdiivka or outside of Kupiansk or anything like that?
Well,
I really am left scratching my head.
I'm sure they do. I mean, well, I know they do. They have the guns pretty much everywhere. It's just that this particular story just came from Kherson. So,
well, the thing about what makes it so interesting is, a lot of them at one place and a lot of rounds at one place. At a sort of a limited amount of time. And if you look at to what a D30 can do, it's a 122 millimeter round. It can go, roughly 11 to 14 kilometers. Like, it's really going to only be good at one thing, and that's shooting at short range, people that can't really shoot back, and, not very accurately. So really, it's kind of the ideal weapon if your goal is to piss off and kill as many civilians as possible, and, you're not heavily engaged with as many FPVs or counterfire. This would be the best weapon system for it. So it is sort of like a a certain moment in time where you can kind of remember that the Russians are assholes.
Yeah. So this D30, it basically can only shoot two towns. It can only shoot civilians, basically. Where this D30 was, it could shoot civilians and a little bit of this island, and I'm not sure how much Ukraine is actually using that island. So, yeah. Anyways, while you're here, I figured we could have a conversation about what do you think about the way mortars and FPVs and artillery and air power, how do you think they combine, or how do you think Ukraine, what do you think they could do to use them most effectively? Like I don't think they're going to do an offensive this year, at least I hope not, but they could next year. What do you think is the best way to combine these? Like if you had a year to plan.
So if I drop out, just let me know. But it's interesting you bring this up, because there's a lot of people saying that drones are being used in a revolutionary way. Artillery is being used in a revolutionary way. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but as we know, they're having a massive problem with ammo. And that's pretty obvious. But what that means is it becomes difficult to plan reliably how you're going to defend a stretch of terrain when you don't know how many rounds you'll have in the future. So drones have obviously come in. But, if your main plan is, if you're about to get overrun, you send up 20 drones and you don't have drones, you don't have a backup. Now you have to, consider differently, well, where you're going to be, or, sort of the idea that if there's too much EW or too many countermeasures, you can't effectively have these drones ready to go like you could have artillery. So to be clear, if they're running low on mortars and artillery, all they have is drones, that's not very good for offensive planning, but it can get them through on defensive. So all the more reason to make more FPVs so they have more options. Because when you talk about joint fires like you are, it's all about combining options in time and space to maximize effects. And especially as these Baba Yagas and other drone bombers get bigger and more sophisticated, they'll probably take up a little bit more of what artillery used to do. But at the end of the day, it's an all-weather weapon. So you always want to have some mortars or artillery to kind of get the job done.
What do you see as the role of like an artillery piece going forward? Like what do you think its ideal targets are?
So this is the very interesting thing about how Soviet artillery was, and this will become important in a moment. But basically, a Soviet artilleryman, or at least on the officer side, had way more jobs than their American counterparts. And that goes for a lot of Soviet military positions back in the day, and even now. You'll notice officers doing more maintenance, officers not just planning, but also executing in troop movements, things that typically American NCOs have. And so on the artillery side, you end up in a situation where if you are an artillery battery commander in the Soviet and now Russian, and by somewhat extension, the hybrid Ukrainian army, your job is to blow things up. And what I mean is, you're out of ammo, you still got to figure out a way to blow things up. You're not just a battery commander, but you're also the fire support officer. You're planning the effects. And whereas in NATO militaries, this job is done by different people, in both the Russian and the Ukrainian military, this is the same person. And so what do we see? Well, they run out of ammo, they still have to blow things up. And so you sort of become more talented at FPVs and anti-tank weapons. And you're sort of understand that your job is the end state of blowing things up, as opposed to just getting rounds out. Because, for America and other countries, when you run out of rounds, your job's kind of done. That's the end of the story. But for them, it's not. And that's not a product of them not having ammo. That's a product of how the system is designed. So moving forward, at least with Ukraine, will they, after they get more ammo, will they separate these jobs? Will they really get to focus like they did for a little bit when they had a crap ton of ammo, like during the counteroffensive? Will this be two separate jobs of shooting versus blowing things up? Because some people think it's all the same, but in reality, they're actually quite different.
Yeah, we've seen drones supporting artillery and drones also supporting infantry. It seems that drones can fill a lot of roles. Um, there are lots of different types. Like, I don't know, do you think like in our like okay, so we follow this artillery group. They have M777s and they're called the Vicious Artillery Group. Um, and they recently created their own FPV drone program. So they trained with Magyar to develop their pilots, and they bought all their own drones, and now they have a little drone program. Do you think these artillery-based drones are going to specialize into supporting artillery more, or like and if so, what kind of support do you think artillery needs to do their job better?
Well, so this is sort of the darker side of what's going on. When we talk about who can fundraise more is going to have more battlefield potential, and obviously, this is not how most countries think. But in an existential crisis like Ukraine's in, it's sort of how they have to think. So what I think about it is, having talked to some, not just Ukrainian drone pilots, but Ukrainian infantry commanders and Ukrainian artillery commanders, each one of them will give you a very different answer on how the three things should work. The guys on the ground, the guys shooting the rounds, and the guys controlling the drones. From the American point of view, the answer is pretty clear. It's the infantry people that decide where the drones go and where the rounds land. In the old Soviet model, it was the opposite. It was how many rounds did you have, and that was going to dictate where the fire missions went, and that's where going to dictate where the people went by extension. So honestly, I think what Ukraine should do, and what they're sort of already doing, is basically the first planning consideration is how many drones do they have and what can they do with them, and that's going to sort of lead to, well, how much artillery do they need and how many people do they need, because clearly what they're best at with limited resources is how well they use their drones, and I think that's an important feature moving forward as more things become automated and more things look like drones either on the air or in the ground. That could be a new planning consideration to sort of center your military model in, which would be quite different than sort of anything we've ever seen before.
Do you want your own drones?
Well, I have my own drones, but so it's sort of funny. It's unthinkable in a lot of militaries that artillery people should get the drones, because for a lot of people, they think these should be two separate processes. You should be either focused on shooting or looking, but you shouldn't be trying to do both. And obviously, Ukraine has shown that with very few rounds, you can be very effective. Like, for example, you look at DPICM missions. Ukraine can kill a tank or two with just a handful of rounds, under 10, whereas in the American military, Doctrine states it's going to take about 100 rounds to do that same thing. What's the difference? Well, it's the drones observing.
Yeah, we saw this video today where they fired the cluster munitions and then started shooting a Bradley at it and then started throwing drones at it. So it was like every type of weapon all landing in the same spot, basically.
And if it goes right, I mean the effects were pretty astounding. I'm not sure if you had the battle damage from that, but it seemed to be relatively effective.
I wouldn't want to be there. Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect example in that video of your, normally you'd have artillery or fires, your drones shaped for your maneuver in terms of your infantry or Bradleys. But if you look at just how the video is ordered, it's very different. The artillery is shaping for the Bradley to get close and keep their heads down, and it's the drones, not the infantry, that are finishing off the Russians. And so that maybe in and of itself isn't revolutionary, but it shows how with just a handful of artillery rounds, I mean, it really was like two or three, a decent amount of 20 millimeter ammo, and a handful of FPVs, if you're synchronized, you can do a hell of a lot of damage. And that's the most important takeaway.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna ask you again though. Do you want an FPV drone group? Like if you could, like right now, just have your own little FPV drone group, would you make one?
Yeah, well, if I was in the conditions Ukraine was in, and you drop me in, absolutely. As long as people didn't tweet about it 24/7, then maybe I'd be happier.
Okay. Uh yeah. I don't. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I would just say, 'cause I do have to go here, that it was a very positive week for ammo production across Europe with new contracts in Slovakia and increased production in Germany. All these countries which have given a lot of ammo to Ukraine in the past. So that is all very promising.
Yeah, and then there's this news today that Europe might be looking outside of Europe or outside of the EU for more shells, which is nice.
Yeah, if that's what it takes. I mean, the money, I think the money is there. It's just they wanted to increase their production as well. But if it's going to take too slow, then they might as well buy it from outside of Europe.
Yeah, yeah. I have no doubt that Europe is going to meet their plan. What is it? They want to make like 1 million and then 2 million and then 3 million. Is that it for the next like 3 years?
Something like that, yeah.
I think they're going to meet that. I think they'll at least get close. I think this time they got close too. It's just it might be a little too ambitious. Like maybe they'll only get 2.5 million instead of 3 or whatever. But at least they're trying, you know. And they're it's not like they're not just talking. That's kind of what excites me. They're not just like saying words. They're actually doing things.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'd rather shoot for a lot and get a medium amount than shoot for a little and get none.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I'm very hopeful that Europe will do it because there are some factories in Europe that can produce enormous numbers of shells, and I have faith that they will do so. I actually
As Romanov says, right, time will tell.
I actually wonder if Europe will end up producing more than Russia just by itself. And then if you ever add on America on top of that, it would be nice. But who knows if that'll ever happen.
I think they're already close. I mean, Germany was 700,000, Slovakia getting up to 150,000. Czechia and Spain only have to make 1 million, or all of the rest of EU, other than those first three, have to make 1 million, and they're outproducing Russia. So, of course, that doesn't mean all that's going to Ukraine,
Yeah.
but still, they're actually making more than I think people realize.
Speaking of Russian production, what do you think of Russia moving to TNT? Do you think it matters?
Yeah. I have no clue. But if it's not what they used to be doing when they had more time and slightly more quality control, then it's probably good for Ukraine.
Because it was I think they said that the ammo they're producing for their older guns, so like the 2S1, the 2S3, the D30, and the D20. I think they're all maybe not like exclusively, but they're going to be mostly TNT. And then I think the newer guns, like the Mista, is going to be whatever other explosive they use.
IMX. Well, the fact that they have to make new molds, and as we were talking about earlier, they have to make completely new different types is a good sign that they're running out of rounds to refurbish. Again, it sounds like hope, but it really is not at this point.
Yeah. People are dissing the British. I feel people are dissing the British right now, and I don't think they should. You should diss America. Anyway, CJ left. He left us, Gick.
You were just saying we should diss America. he didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. I honestly think the British are going to be one of the largest producers of shells in Europe. In the next, it's probably going to take like a year to get there, but maybe by the end of this year they'll be at the top. Like the British, I think they might be able to produce as much as Russia just by themselves. Anyways. So that was the CJ segment. So, should I go back to what I was talking about before, or do you just want to move on?
I think you should have concluded that segment, to be honest.
We'll
talking
see.
about the losses, because now it's going to be hard to get back into it, but you should definitely do it.
I knew CJ was going to just randomly leave, and I... This is where to fit CJ in. So yeah, going back to the losses. I have some charts. I have a tweet. I have some charts. I have give me a second, I will give you another chart. As soon as I find it. But basically the losses that we found for Russia in the month of January is over 1,000. It's over 1,100. It's not great for them, to be honest. So this is a chart. This has all of the numbers. It has so this like little area here, I'll even draw on it. I'll draw a little box. So like this is kind of the important part, I guess, like this box. So bad at drawing. My excuse is that I'm left-handed. And I use a mouse in my right hand because we live in a right-handed world, you know? So it's hard. Anyways, so this is kind of the box that matters the most. So it's the destroyed and abandoned of the main vehicle types. So basically, Russia lost around 1,150 vehicles that we identified. Of those, 500 were destroyed, 475 were damaged, and 171 were abandoned. What do you think about our stats? Because you know the most about our stats. Do you think that they are biased? Do you think that they are bad? Do you think we have duplicates? Are we double counting? Did we count every Russian vehicle 3 times? Is that what happened?
No, definitely not. I think that the numbers of potentially double counted vehicles would be very low. At the same time, I think that the damaged vehicles might be kind of misleading unless you excluded all of the 1 FPV drone hits a cope cage.
I did not.
Exactly.
So
the damage is really a pooling of, it could be very minor damage to, it could be that some vehicle needs major repairs. So that's a very wide range of what could be.
That's why I draw this box. This box is really what matters. And in fact, I have another chart that is basically just zooms in on this box. So here's the other chart. So yeah, this kind of just limits us to the most important vehicles, and just looking at the boxes now around the destroyed. So that's 119 infantry fighting vehicles, which honestly, I did go through some of the vehicles the other day, and I found I looked through about 50 of these, and I found 1 duplicate and deleted it. So,
I mean, what's on top of that is that I feel that a large portion of those vehicles are actually geolocated.
Yes, they are. Especially the IFVs. The IFVs in particular are the vast majority of them are geolocated, and they're all confirmed, and it's unlikely there's duplicates. Like I think this is like the number I feel the most confident in, of everything. Do you think Ukrainian losses are actually this low?
It could be. We don't see them deploy much of their mechanized forces, to be honest. Most of the hits I see are on civilian vehicles. Recently, there was an uptick in Lancet strikes on vehicles, but honestly, we don't see them move around with mechanized forces all too much in the videos we see.
Yeah, it's mostly for rotations.
Yeah.
Which are dangerous. Rotations are dangerous. Lord Flashheart is giving out more channel memberships. They're giving out more green eyeballs that people can bestow on each other.
That's nice of him.
It's very friendly. There's another membership given by
But this chart now goes on to the end of January, right?
This is January 1st to January 31st. This is only January.
Okay, that explains why some major boat was missing on the previous chart.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's no boat. Yeah, the artillery, we could only find 47 confirmed destroyed. For artillery, I guarantee like almost all of these are SPGs, because I almost never mark a towed gun as destroyed because I can never actually tell unless it's really obvious. Like there are a few guns where we see like literally the gun completely exploded, and I'll mark that as destroyed. But if it's at all ambiguous, I put it as damaged. So it could be that like with tanks and infantry fighting vehicles and all these things, damaged, like these numbers probably don't mean that much. But with artillery, there's a solid chance a lot of those are actually destroyed. I just with towed guns, if I see it get damaged, I always mark it as damaged unless it's really obviously destroyed. Like for example, the other day, a Ukrainian MT-12, is that what it's called? It got hit by a drone like perfectly in the breach, and the breach exploded. So that was marked as destroyed, but like that almost never happens. Anyways, so most, like probably 98% of these 47 destroyed are SPGs, like literally catastrophically exploding. So yeah, the another thing that I'd like to say is that recently our friend Daniela, he wrote an article about FPV drones, and that article that everyone's been quoting to me is using our data. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and it did get some high recognition.
It did.
That article.
It did.
Yeah.
The one of the head like ministers of Ukraine is talking about it. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And it also shows why this work is important, because he's using this also for lobbying for certain, state-funded programs for FPV drones and so on. So that is really something that the units have been asking for quite some time.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully there are... So the guy senator from the Vicious Artillery Group, I mentioned him before. He wrote a bit ago, like 2 months ago, he wrote about how he wants Ukraine to have dedicated drone battalions, which I think they're kind of moving towards. Sort of, I think like Magyar is sort of turning into his own drone battalion. I think he recently got promoted to that.
Well, he got a new logo, that's for sure, and I think he's now commanding a bet.
Yeah, so basically what I've heard from a bunch of different Ukrainian officers is they want drone pilots pooled in larger and larger numbers in dedicated like assault battalions. Like their job would be to basically to work with a like one or more brigades of infantry and or mechanized infantry to support them as like their personal firepower. I don't know how you would really describe that. It's kind of like I think of these drones in the same kind of category as a mortar. But I know nobody agrees with me, but that's how I think of it. And having these big groups of drone pilots supporting infantry, I think is a good idea. And that's not to like the infantry should have their own drone pilots as well. It's not to exclude that. It's in addition. It's like these dedicated attack pilots. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think it would be better to have a big group of pilots or to have them more spread out?
To have them more spread out? How do you mean?
Like, do you think like maybe every brigade should have its own, or maybe every battalion should have like a company of pilots, or do you think the pilots should be pulled together in their own battalions?
Honestly, I think a mixture of both, to be honest, because I do think that the FPV drones provide for a very quick reaction time. So having them integrated into whatever effort you're currently in is making a lot of sense. But if you look at situations like Grinky, where you have a very contained area where Ukrainian ground forces are operating, and you have a relatively large area where you need to swarm with drones, and whatever you spot, you need to hit. For that kind of scenario, it makes a lot of sense to have those specialized battalions operating there. But I still don't think that you should only have them, because I think it's if you run an offensive effort, it makes most sense to have them integrated into your overall planning and efforts to provide for that quick reaction time.
The benefit to having these bigger groups of pilots is that they would serve a different role. Like for example, I don't think Magyar is supporting infantry so much as they're hunting down and destroying the Russian assets. Like they're going out and destroying tanks and like their cars and their logistics, and they're like going out and doing that as their main job. And then the infantry can support themselves because the Marines have their own drone pilots that can do things like attack a building that has some like Russians in it or something. Like they can do that on their own. So it kind of breaks up the duties into they're doing different things basically.
Yeah, and I just think that having them integrated into your own brigade or whatever, if you just consider this situation where you're basically pinned down by an MG position or something like that, I think that if you have integrated FPV drone pilots, it will be a lot quicker to resolve that situation.
I agree. I personally think every platoon should have its own drone pilots. I think it should be at the platoon level. And that, I don't know. It's just like I'd like to have big battalions of drone pilots, and also every platoon have its own drone pilot squad. Anyways, so we have some news to talk about. Um, First, there's been some talk over the past few days that Ukraine has kicked Russia out of Vasile. A lot of people are talking about it. We've not seen proof. The closest we had to proof was some shelling in Vasile, but I looked through the weather, and I'm pretty sure that this shelling was before Ukraine lost Vasile to begin with. So that's not great evidence for them having kicked Russia back out. And the reason I say that is because it's super snowy, and when Ukraine lost the town, it was very snowy, and since then, the snow has mostly melted, and it's like only partially snowy now. So like, if you were to see like a current image, there would still be snow, but it would be patches of snow, not solid covering like this. So I don't think that's recent. Um, but yeah, I know that you've messaged me about people saying that they've kicked the Russians out of here, but we just I haven't seen any solid evidence.
Yeah, to be honest, I think kicking Russians out of Vasile means they couldn't climb the hill, and it was untenable to be in the town itself.
So being in the town itself, I wrote it up as the day it happened, but going into the town itself is incredibly stupid. There's no reason to be in this town. It has absolutely no value. Every structure is long since destroyed. It's just nothingness, with a hill on each side. The hill in the south is very gentle down, and the hill in the north is much steeper. And and frankly, where you would want to be is over here. You'd want to be going this way. You would not want to be in this town because this is also high ground. So, the, like this stream is obviously low ground. So, you Russia has taken a bunch of high ground away from Ukraine, and they're kind of like going around the high grounds, and Ukraine is kind of hugging this like last piece of high ground. It's actually kind of tenuous, to be honest. I'm not sure what Ukraine will do if they lose this last ridge, because after that, it's like super flat, and it's a Ukraine just I don't know, dude. When it's just always whenever Ukraine gets into these sorts of situations where they have to defend these large flat plains, it just seems that they just slowly get pushed out. That they really kind of need the high ground advantage. It just seems to be the way things break out in the long run. But anyways, that's the Vasile area. There was a slight update in the map in this Sakui Vincere area. So um, I, I've always known that Ukraine controlled this. I just didn't know the full extent of it. And last night I bought the bullet, or I bit the bullet, and I bought high res image of this area. The high res image is kind of poopy, but it did allow me to finally actually map this area. So this is for sure what Ukraine controls. So this field here is Ukraine doesn't control it. It's just a giant gray area. It's not getting shelled. There's no trenches. There's no sign of anyone entering here. It's probably a minefield. there is some trenches in this kind of forested area. Um, I couldn't see like over here because it was cloudy. So yeah, so Ukraine controls basically up to this river in this area. I have no clue what Russia actually controls. They have no trench line along the river, and I don't know they're defending. I don't even know if they control this. To be honest, this whole middle area may just be a giant minefield. Like this whole area.
What I was wondering is, you weren't updating the map in the Spurne area,
Yes.
and I think on Discord you argued that it might be old. But when was the last time we had any news from there? Because I feel like this is still younger than any other news we had from there.
I can't remember. The map remembers better than I do. Give me my tooltips. Okay, so December 27th.
Okay, well, that's in range for that video.
Let's go back to, this is gonna be brave. I'm going to preload days before I actually. Anyway, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to December 27th and see what that weather was like. was it dirty or was it snowy? Let's see. Okay, so I don't know. It was snowy.
It looks pretty similar, huh?
Yeah, it's not too different. This video is fascinating. If you want to watch this, I can't show it on the stream, but this video is absolutely great. It shows really the power of an FPV drone. I think this is one of the most interesting FPV drone videos that we've had. So basically, this area right here is a giant pile of destroyed Russian equipment. There's like 20 destroyed vehicles here, and the Russians turned those destroyed vehicles into like a fortress. It's actually kind of funny. So they like use the vehicles as like walls, and they built trenches between all the vehicles so that you can move from vehicle to vehicle. It's like a castle. It's a destroyed tank castle, and Ukraine forced the Russians out of this defensive position just by hitting it with drones, and it was very, very interesting, that video. But yeah, it was snowy back then, so yeah, I'm just not convinced new new footage is new. Although even back then, we didn't think Ukraine was up that far, so I don't know, dude.
Yeah, at the same time, like those shells, they don't seem to hit anyone. Like no soldier is visible or anything. The shelling is literally just into the void. It could be, I don't know, just shelling something to show something to commanders.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I remember these positions from when Russia originally captured this in July. I do recognize that this is an actual trench line right here. There's and this was actually an interesting trench line in the way it's shaped. It has like kind of like underground bunkers in kind of like the middle of these trees, and then there's like layers of trenches around those bunkers. It was kind of interesting. So so this is a legit defensive position. I'm not so these are just like houses. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so that's kind of that. What do you think of Yampolivka?
I haven't heard much from there, but the Russians keep claiming that they've made it further. But the last couple of days, I don't think I heard much, and I also don't think I geolocated too many videos there. It
Yes.
seemed like 63rd is cleaning up some abandoned vehicles and destroying them now. The Russians were towing a T-90, which we didn't even know was abandoned somewhere. So that was interesting. Yeah, so it might still be active. The Russians claim a lot, but I don't think we had all too many.
I marked this as a Russian capture this morning on the back of a text message I got, basically from a guy I know. So he basically said that this advance was real. So I marked it. Um, we don't have video of it or anything, but I trust him. So that's all I got. So you're now Gik is getting into the fight with the technician.
Oh yeah, he needs punishment.
All right, so this whole northern area, I really have nothing to say about the northern area. The next area that we can talk about is Avdiivka. Now, there are a bunch of things that we could say about Avdiivka, but the first thing that comes to my mind is this video from a few days ago of these civilians escaping basically Russian captivity in Avdiivka. And anyway, these are comments that the civilians made. So these are the civilians right here, like these people. And you can watch this video. It's right. You can go here. It's from the 31st. You can go click it, and you can watch the video by clicking this link. But these are comments that they made in the video, where I think the woman said they drove all of us into a room like dogs. When the Russian troops came in, it was not even a nightmare. There were blood, deaths, and looting. He said, I worked in the mine for 34 years, and everything I did for my family is now destroyed. They shot indiscriminately at the windows, ran into the house, and shot everything. They killed my mother. We were able to bury her only on the 5th day in her garden. It's not worth it. You only have one life. We forgot about hot weather. It is such a blessing. So this video is also on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube if you want to. That's the link. But I would suggest watching it on Telegram if you have a Telegram account, because I think it's like less bleepy. Like I think it's less edited. They have to I think they remove parts for YouTube. But anyways, I'll just show part of the video because there's nothing like graphic or anything like that. I'll put to normal speed. I don't know about you, Gik, but I watch everything on like 1.5.
Oh no, I thought about starting that after I noticed that you're doing that, but like it makes me miss details, and I'm basically waiting for that one frame where I can see anything next to a tree to be able to geolocate it. So I can't watch it too fast.
Yeah, these are the civilians. What they did is that they were basically captured by Russian soldiers. They were held in a basement at gunpoint, and they got sick of it, so they made a white flag out of like a towel, and they all walked down the street with their white flag into the Ukrainian controlled part of the city. This is the guy saying that he worked in the mine for 34 years and everything that he built in his life is now gone. But anyways, I know you can't hear it because my plugin doesn't work. but anyways, if you want to watch the video, probably most of you can't understand what they're saying anyway. But if you want to watch it, the link is here. There's a YouTube link and the other link. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. To be honest, a lot of that money is going towards satellite imagery at this point because it's so useful. Buying the satellite imagery, it helps in so many ways.
Sometimes it's the only way to geolocate something.
Yeah. And once you geolocate one thing, it can help you geolocate future things. And then we honestly, we learn more from satellites than we do from probably everything else combined. Because the satellite is objective. It just tells you what it sees, you know. It doesn't have a spin.
So Dimitri was just asking if we also track the amount of people killed on videos.
We don't.
Should maybe
Oh.
maybe we should get I don't know, Big Seg or someone.
Well, did you see what I posted in Discord today?
Well, you posted a lot. Which one specifically?
Let me
Oh,
find it.
The Wild Division video, I think.
No. The guy who called me Mr. Fart. Let me find it. Okay, so this is his comment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is maybe you or him. I don't know. Maybe you or him. But he said that in taking after me, apparently, Mr. Fart, he wants to start recording photo and video losses. Instead of equipment, he wants to do Ukrainian and Russian infantry losses. So maybe he will follow through.
I mean, anyone seriously interested in that, at least since July, you know, they like working on the spreadsheet, you could potentially get a lot of those losses because, I mean, most of them are in there.
Yeah, it will be an extraordinarily time-consuming process to do that.
Yeah, and it will be hard to count if someone is going to, you know.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely possible to do this. You'd be missing tons. You can only count what you see. So that's always the caveat. It's the same with vehicles, but with people, it's even more so. Because like if a vehicle explodes and we don't see it, like we can buy like a satellite image and then see it that way, or you know whatever. Or we might see it, 3 months from now in another video or whatever. We can see it eventually. But it doesn't work like that with infantry. They kind of disappear after a while. So, and a lot of these videos, like, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly happens. Or how many people there were.
Yeah. Others, on the other hand, are very clear.
Yeah, so the video yesterday, there was like a Russian, he like crawled into a hole, and then the hole exploded, and like the roof of the hole went away, so it was just the hole part, but there was no Russian anymore. There was no more Russian. Where did he go? It was just a hole. He just like vape, like he was gone. Like there's nothing. So confusing. Anyways, so getting into Avdiivka. Last night, there was a pretty depressing video, to be honest, of Russia. Well, it was Ukrainians hitting Russians in several positions. One was this house, another was this bush. There were Russians in that bush. And the another was this house. Um, After that, I got sad and I didn't want to geolocate them anymore. But they hit more houses in this general area. What do you make of that, Gick?
Yeah, I feel like it's very hard to interpret because that area is very easy for infantry to sneak through. I already wondered, to be honest.
We don't even know which direction they came from.
Yeah, but probably from the north, because you can sneak there quite easily, and there's little, open area to properly see and prevent it. I think that once they entered the northern part of those dachas, it was more or less predictable because I didn't see any line which they would defend there or could defend properly there, at least for infantry.
Sneaky. They could have came from the east too. You can't write off coming from the east because we know that they did a huge attack. A giant column of vehicles came here, and we never saw the result. We saw part of the result. Like part of it was that like a whole bunch of vehicles exploded, but we don't actually know what happened. And if they get a foothold in one of these tree lines and they start advancing south, at what point would Ukraine just leave the tree line? Right? Would you defend it all the way to the river, like to the reservoir, whatever this is? Would you defend it all the way to the get your back against the reservoir? Like you can't do that. Who? I don't know. Like they could have come that way. I don't know. I'm not really sure where they came from. We do know that Ukraine has fortified this house. It's actually not a house. It's like an industrial building. We know that's fortified, and we have no reason to believe Ukraine left it. It's possible they left it. I mean, it's possible that they came this way too. That's another way they could come. So there's actually three ways they could have gotten here, and we have no clue. But this was fortified. There's trenches. We know Ukraine was controlling that, but they may have lost it. The last time we had info about that was like 2 weeks ago. So, anyways, and in the south, we have no particular info other than there's like constantly drones going back and forth in all these areas, but we don't
Both
even
are
know.
attacking this.
Yeah, we don't even know when these drones happened. It's like it's hard to date them now.
You know what this reminds me of? If you play Call of Duty and you just respawn every here and then, that's what it feels like. Everyone gets their try, and it changes hands every I don't know, every hour, and then both attack it, and it's, I don't know, it's so confusing.
Yep. So, anyways, the Avdiivka and this kind of this area here, this map update was more recent. Like I can't remember what day it was. It was the 29th. It did not happen on the 29th. It happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had never had video footage, and then video footage came out, so I did it. So, uh, more or less, this top the northern part of Avdiivka is very worrying to me. Um, what I fear is that they're going to just pour infantry in, and they're gonna dig in um, like little roaches. They just dig in like their little holes in the ground and just sit there. And Ukraine's not gonna be able to kick them out. And eventually, they're gonna have so many guys here that then they can like pour into the next area, and that's just gonna repeat until Avdiivka's gone. That's like my fear, and I'm not sure what Ukraine can do to counter that because they don't have the forces to do it. And the reason they don't have the forces is because there's like no supply route into Avdiivka. Like you there's all like okay, so Avdiivka has a lot of supplies in it because Ukraine had been just dumping supplies here for a long time. Like there's a lot of ammo and food and stuff. So like Avdiivka itself is very much like a fortress. So um but you can only sustain so many troops here because there's no supply roads really. Like this road is like a dirt road. I mean we talked about this enough. You know, there's like one paved road, one dirt road, and that's it. You know, so you can't really supply it. It's hard to get people out. Um, like not impossible. It's just it's limited. There's only so much you can do in Avdiivka with these weak supply lines. So you can't like send in like three more brigades or something because there's no way to supply it. So they're very limited in what their options are. They're limited in how many troops they can sustain. And that's not even getting into the issue of Ukraine just not having enough infantry to begin with. Oh, Bjorn is giving out memberships, bestowing more green eyeballs. I'm gonna post a green eyeball. Boom. Okay, so the other thing about Avdiivka is it's getting hit really hard with airstrikes, pretty constantly, dozens of times per day. Um, like I'm gonna open up um, a a Telegram channel I follow, which is just news about Avdiivka, and I'm just gonna scroll through. So this is from about 5 hours ago, which is the last time I checked it. So they say three missile strikes, two more missile strikes, um, four more missile strikes, three more missile strikes, a rocket strike. So that's a few hours worth of these missile strikes are, I believe, they are a combination of guided and unguided rockets fired by airplanes, I believe. Are there videos of these roads? There are a few. They're from like a while ago. The roads are not great, buddy. Especially when they get icy. These roads can get really icy. More memberships from Pineapple Prime. It's a membership day. Everybody gets a green eyeball. Okay, so is there anything you'd like to talk about, Avdiivka?
Maybe the situation in the south of the Senate because of that one new drone strike.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. Pretty scary. So I drew the map like this. I don't know if you agree. Um, but I drew it like this. And man, I don't know what to say. It's just the Russians in a trench line to the immediate west of Zenit is got hit by a drone. What else is there to say? It's not good. It's really bad. Um,
I mean, what's there to say is that those guys, they are not just, occupying the trench and relaxing there, but they're in active combat. So they were engaging CNET, and they were, from what it appears like, they were engaged by CNET. So at least at the date of that video, CNET is still manned by Ukrainian troops, I would say.
yeah, for
or
sure.
the tree line just north of CNET, if it still exists. I don't know. So that's one observation. And the second one is that those dudes in that trench, they might all be goners, to be honest. So I think, having it a gray or a combat area is probably a good bet, even though it might be it might also be a scoping a bit.
If Ukraine loses Zenit at this point, it would be a catastrophe, I think. It is so important to everything, especially this northern part. Dude, it'd be so bad. It'd be so bad. Because if you lose Zenit, and Russia gets all this high ground, they already have fire control over this road. It'll be even worse. This is the last really barrier protecting that road. This area of the city is like the beating heart of Avdiivka. So you're getting really close to it, cutting off its main fortification to the south. And they're encroaching on the north. It's all terrifying. Losing Zenit would be a catastrophe. See, when in the past, I remember I talked to a few Ukrainians who really know more about Avdiivka than anyone I've ever met, and they were telling me that the keys to Avdiivka in the south were to hold Zenit and to hold this intersection, which they called Slab. So this was Slab, and that's Zenit, and Ukraine lost Slab without even fighting for it. They abandoned it. They were ordered to not even defend it, which was horrible, horrible. And losing Zenit would be really bad. Because if you held both of these positions, it's like impossible to attack Avdiivka from the south. So instead of being reliant on these two roads, you would also get this third road, and it would all just be a much better position. And oh man, it's just losing Zenit is bad. It's so bad. How many Ukrainians got captured here? I don't know. Most of the Ukrainians were not captured. Oh, I don't know. Have you heard anything about the pipe?
No.
Yeah, I don't know the current pipe situation. But yeah, we know that some Ukrainians were captured, some were killed, and the rest withdrew. The majority withdrew and counterattacked, apparently. So yeah, I don't know, dude.
Yeah, it's not looking great. At the same time, it's maybe not that easy to understand if all of that is really recent or if that was one combined effort. When the hotel happened, they also attacked CNET.
Yes,
they attacked the north, and now we see the outcome of it.
That is very possible. We do know that they tried to attack the north of Zenit on the day that everybody thought Zenit was lost. And we know that that attack was completely repelled. But we don't know the specifics of that attack, and this may have been that.
So yeah, it could be under control, but the last things we see are not looking too good.
Anyways, near Avdiivka, I made some like little tiny change. It's not a super big deal. Um, and moving on south, uh, the entire area north of Novomikhailivka has collapsed, basically. Um, this was unfortunately one of the better defensive positions that Ukraine had. This was called Menagerie. It had to be abandoned because they were outflanked to the south, so they had to abandon it. Russia tried to capture the south so many times. They lost so many vehicles trying. They lost a lot of vehicles trying to capture Menagerie as well. But anyways, Ukraine had to abandon Menagerie, which was a really good position, but what can you do? And so they've fallen on back. There's still multiple layers of pretty good defenses here. The reason that the area north of Novomikhailivka was so good is because Menagerie was a really good position, and this was also a really, I don't know the name of it, but this was another really good one. But it's just every single one is really good because it's just really built up fortifications, and it's not obvious. I mean, like you can see some trench lines, but it's not obvious how built up they are just looking at the map. But when you talk to the soldiers who are there, they'll tell you it's really built up. When you see some of these assaults, like Russia posted a video of the assault on this position here, and they showed how these like seemingly mundane earthworks, like these earthen walls, they were hollowed out and turned into like kind of like a castle wall. Like the inside is hollow and you can like walk through it, and there's like bunkers and rooms inside. And Ukraine was using that to defend this whole area, but they were overrun and had to abandon it. So there's just a lot of things like that throughout this whole area. I believe these were all pretty similar. So, but yeah, Ukraine is just slowly losing all this ground. But Russia is also taking it at ridiculous costs. They've lost so much equipment and so much manpower to take these positions that it makes you wonder if they have the capability to keep going. Because again, Novomikhailivka is not what matters. It's Konstantinivka. This is the town that matters. All of this is the buffer between, the important area and where they are. So this is all buffer. This is their defense. So obviously you don't want to defend the thing that you need. But yeah, it's like losing these positions is not the end of the world as long as Ukraine can keep Konstantinivka. And to the south, we've seen some things lately, haven't we?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of things.
Would you like to talk about them?
I mean, it starts with knowing that the Russians have occupied Solotkiv for, I don't know, a whole year or something like that. And still they managed to, assault out of it and get broken down pretty much immediately when leaving that town. That's how successful they were. But yeah, they lost another column there. I think 72nd destroyed something around 15, maybe more vehicles.
This attack was so silly. They just lost so much stuff. It's just so much. It just we couldn't even count all of this when we first got this. Like we needed more video to see. And in retrospect, you can actually say all the losses. It was just really hard to count them. Because like this, like like you look at this, you squint, and you're like, is that a vehicle? Maybe it's not. It's actually two. So that's two vehicles, and that's three vehicles. But it's hard to see them. This is another vehicle. That's a vehicle. That's a vehicle. Here's two. So it's just there's so many vehicles here. And so like I think that's an MTLB, like a BMP2, MTLB, a tank. This is a T80 BV. I think that's an MTLB. I think this is a BMP2. I think this was a T80 BVM, and I think I can't remember. Like these are like two more MTLBs or something. There's another tank over here. It was like a T72 or something. So it's just so much, so many vehicles in one attack that did nothing. Just
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what Ukraine needs.
yeah.
And did you watch the video with the FPV drones hitting most of those?
Yeah, yeah. I
Because that video is so ridiculous. Like some of those drones, they come in at I don't know Mach 4 speed or something like that. That video is incredible.
yeah. So this area is kind of the joke of the thumbnail today. So this is the sorry, wrong button. This is the thumbnail today, and talking about this is treason. It's the boat sinking. It's him saying it, because our buddy old pal, he said everyone who talked about or showed the video of this Russian assault should be thrown in prison for treason.
And to be clear, like the biggest Russian Telegram accounts are sharing that video
Of course they are. Everyone did.
complaining about stupidity.
Because it's upsetting. It's upsetting the Russian people. They're upset now, and it's your fault. It's treason.
To be honest, I would prefer if they wouldn't show it because like it's better if they don't adapt and don't learn. Keep doing that. That's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to Avdiivka, people are talking about Bakhmut now. What was the first piece of Bakhmut falling? I don't want to talk about Bakhmut, but if you want to talk about Avdiivka, the reason Avdiivka will be lost, I think it will be lost. Obviously, I don't have like a crystal ball, but I think the reason why is because they lost Anthill. So this is Anthill here, and this is Kuku. I'm gonna go to my other map. Okay, so this is Kuku here. Oh, you can't see my mouse. I just realized. Oh, there you can. So this is Kuku, right here, and this is Anthill, and they lost this position because this road was in a defilade, and the defilade after bombardment was lost basically, and nobody maintained this road, so it lost its defilade. Actually, that's not true. This was the road. This was the road here. It lost its defilade, and as it lost its defilade due to artillery shelling, they had to abandon that road and start driving across the field, and that's what this is. When they started driving across the field, they started suffering really, really high losses every time they went to do a rotation or bring supplies or do a medical evacuation. They're taking really serious casualties, and it got to the point where no one was willing to drive it anymore. And once it got to that point where nobody was like, people are saying like, if we drive, we'll automatically die. Like there's no way to survive. When it got to that point, Ukraine basically had to abandon. anthill. Shortly thereafter, Russia captured it, and they filmed a video on Cuckoo saying it was anthill, and Ukrainians made fun of them for that because they're stupid. Anyway, so that was one piece of it. Losing the defilade on this road was one part. Another part was losing Pisky, and or Pisky. It's not so much that the town was lost; it's the way it was lost. Losing the town was unfortunate, but they lost it due to lack of ammunition. And because that was the reason they lost it, they couldn't defend Slab because they had no ammo to defend it with. The commander here was like, I can't even blow up Slab because there's fortifications here that you can't see because they're like partially underground. I think this has like underground components there. They're like there's underground bunkers and stuff. The commander couldn't even destroy those defenses because he didn't have the ammo to do it. So when they lost Pisky, they basically withdrew all the way to Vodiana and Opitna. This was the first piece of the puzzle to collapse. I think losing this position, losing this without a fight, is the reason that Avdiivka will eventually be lost, I think. It's a very unfortunate situation because this never needed to happen. What should have happened is that Ukraine probably should have sent more resources here. Everybody was so focused on Bakhmut. Everybody was like, "Oh, yeah, gotta defend Bakhmut. Gotta defend Bakhmut." Nobody cared. Nobody cared about Slab. And it wasn't until Russia attacked Vuhledar, where they did that huge assault on Vuhledar, that seemed to have changed the script because I just feel like Ukraine was just so all in on Bakhmut that this attack on Vuhledar kind of like shook him out of it. That's kind of the impression that I got, and it made them redistribute their resources better. They kind of started spreading out a little bit more. They sent more to Vuhledar because if you remember Vuhledar, when it was under attack, they were saying like we have no ammo to defend with, and like we need ammo immediately. I don't know if you remember that. Like they were defending basically with mines and ATGMs because they had no ammo otherwise. But then they were fed ammo from Pokrovsk, and if you remember, once they started feeding ammo south, Russia did a huge missile strike on the city of Pokrovsk, and it damaged a whole bunch of trains and like wiped out a few cafes and restaurants and stuff. And so, anyways, that was a whole big thing. That was the whole big thing that happened when everyone was way too focused on Bakhmut. And if you remember, the other story was the Kherson offensive. Oh boy, the Kherson offensive. So there's a Kherson offensive, there's Bakhmut. What else is there to talk about? Nothing, obviously. So anyway, in the background, all these other things are also happening at the same time. And it's just in all of the whole mess going on, Slab got put on the back burner and nobody cared about it, and it was lost. And it's very unfortunate because if Ukraine never lost this, the whole southern flank of Avdiivka would be rock solid because it's like impossible to attack. When you dig in and defend this correctly, it's like impossible to attack because Ukraine would have all the high ground appear north of Vodiana. And they could just be showering down on anyone who tried to advance up. It would actually be pretty similar to Vuhledar in a lot of ways, where they would have to advance across, terrible terrain to attack out of, into terrain that's easy to defend, and it's all fortified with bunkers, etc. So this whole position should have been rock solid. I think Ukraine's plan, that like their idea for how to defend Avdiivka, um, was that losing like this was their backstop. Like they never wanted Russia to go further north than this intersection. And then they didn't even defend it. They just abandoned it. It's really frustrating. So if you want to talk about how did Avdiivka get lost, I think that's how. Because everything else that's happened, Ukraine could have defended this northern part if they had the southern part. And they may have never lost the northern part at all if they had the southern part. Anyways.
Yeah. Regarding Novomikhailivka, one thing which is interesting is that today 79th published a video of destroying vehicles which were abandoned, I think, in December.
It's fun.
I think you posted about them on Twitter as well.
Yes. Yes. So these vehicles are roughly right here. And it was a BTR 50 with a BTR 70 turret, which is interesting. It was an MTLB, which is boring, and a Brem, which was interesting.
Yeah, and I think what's even more interesting is that Ozent UA was promising that he's going to publish footage from there soon, which allegedly shows several T-62s and T-55s even.
Yes, and I would like to advertise that he has a Buy Me a Coffee, where if you buy in at a certain tier, I can't remember what the tier is, it's not very big, but if you buy in at a certain tier, he posts like exclusive things to the Buy Me a Coffee, which I have subscribed to personally, because I believe the money goes towards their buying drones. I think they like wanted to buy a laptop, and I think they bought the laptop, and now I think they want to buy drones. So, anyway, so if you subscribe to his Buy Me a Coffee, it goes towards buying drones, I'm pretty sure, and you get to see content like tanks exploding, well, which are filmed by the drones that they want to buy. So yeah, when he posted that this morning on the Buy Me a Coffee, that there were, I think he said it was 9 T-62s and a T-55. He said they were near Mariinka. And then I posted the thing, and he said it was near here. I wonder if they're here.
Yeah, it could be.
Because I have high res image of this whole area to the south of Novomikhailivka, and I really don't think any of those are T-62s.
And I think we've seen most of them by now.
Yeah, but we have not seen very much up here. Well, we have seen some, but not that much.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the attacks in the north were a bit more recent than your high res image.
Yeah, and I never bought this far north, dude. To buy the images that I want to buy would cost like $5,000, which I don't have. Oh man, we need like a rich person. That's what we need. Anyways, so yeah, and maybe they're even closer to Mariinka. Maybe they're near Probieta. It's a mystery. It's a mystery that he'll tell us the answer at some point. But for now, we have to wait.
Make sure to follow him.
Yes, I don't have a link to his. But I don't have a link to his Buy Me a Coffee. Here, I'll get a link to his tweet. I'll put that, and then his buy me a coffee, I think, is in his profile. Just, give me a second to find it. Here it is. Put it in the description of this video. There. All right. So, do you have any? Oh, there's Priutny. Oh boy, Priutny. Man, there was a giant battle. A big old battle, wasn't there? It's an interesting battle too. In the way it went, the way it went down. They crossed this giant field with lines, like columns, like multiple columns of vehicles. Um, some of which were literally just going straight down the middle of the field. They're like, who needs cover when you could just drive in a straight line? Some of them did go up near the trees, which seemed a little smarter. I'm not sure if they captured much. You could imagine they probably did capture the tree line as they're moving up. It seems that kind of the Russian strategy, from what I can tell, is to put a whole bunch of infantry on top of a vehicle and to drive until the vehicle explodes. And when the vehicle explodes, the infantry jump off, and then they jump in a tree, and that's where they live now. So it's like it's kind of like maybe like you could think of it as like a form of like pollination, maybe, or like a seed dispersal from like a bird. The bird flies around and then kind of poops out some seeds, and then a plant grows. Except the bird is an MTLB, and the pooping is a landmine. Anyway.
Today I saw a video, which isn't yet public, but I got to learn that Russians are in fact still driving inside MTLBs and, well, in this case, a BMP. So I thought that they are only driving on top of the vehicles by now because it's too frequent that they explode. But I learned that doors still open and people get out of BMPs sometimes.
Sometimes they stack them up on the inside and then stack them up on top too.
So if it explodes, they will spread out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that way you can get like 30 or 40 guys in one vehicle. We saw some of those in Avdiivka, remember?
Yeah.
The thing would explode and like 30 guys would jump out. The high-res images in Ukraine, I think they cost the same as anywhere else. It's depending on what you call high-res. To me, high-res is 30 centimeter. 30 centimeter costs $20 per square kilometer. You can get 70 centimeter, which is not bad. 70 centimeters costs a lot less. Like last night, I bought like a 3 square kilometer image for like $15 or something, which was pretty cheap. Not bad. They call it 50 centimeter, but they're lying. It's actually 70. Above 70 centimeters, I'm not interested in. And what that means is it's 70 centimeters for every pixel. Above that, I'm not super interested. Like there's a 3-meter image. And then there's Sentinel, which is free, and Sentinel is a 10-meter image. I personally, I don't see a difference between a 10 meter and a 3 meter. Like I think they're like basically the same. So I'd rather just have the free 10 meter.
Do you know what Apple Maps is using?
I would guess 30 or 20.
Because it feels like it's higher res than Google Maps, but you can't zoom in as much.
Google Maps, I think Google Maps in some places is like 20, and in other places is like 50, and in some places it's like 80. It depends. It depends. If you zoom in and it's really blurry, it's probably 80. But in most places, I think it's between 30 and 50 on average. But in some cities, like if you look at like New York City, I think it's like 20 or 15. Um, so yeah. You can buy fake 15 centimeters as well. By fake, I mean it's not actually a 15 centimeter image. They take a 30 centimeter image and they do what's called pan sharpening to make it better. You can pan sharpen images yourself. It's not that hard. But they use like some AI to do it to make it a little bit better. It's debatable on whether it's actually better or not. And they charge twice as much money for it. But to be fair, to do pan sharpening on that website, you have to buy the image twice, so paying twice as much actually doesn't cost more money. For some reason, okay, so there's a panchromatic image that you can buy in a satellite, and that's black and white. It's the best image that the camera can take because it's just like the raw camera taking a picture basically, and then you can put filters in front of the camera to take like blue light or red light or infrared light, etc. So you could take all those different bands using a filter. The filter makes the image lesser quality because it's a filter and it's filtering out light, right? So so if you take the chromatic images created by those filters and you combine it with the panchromatic image, you can do what's called pan sharpening, which means that you get the quality of the panchromatic image, but the color of the chromatic image, and together it's the best image that you can really get. So that's cool. But most of these websites, they do not sell you the optical band and the panchromatic band together for some reason. And for some reason, it's price gouging. That's what I mean. So that's that. Anyways, so north of Prutny, they did this big attack. Not sure what the outcome is. The gray area is going on north, really, towards Avdiivka. Some are saying that Ukraine has pushed all the way back to these two ponds. It's possible. I don't really see any proof of that. But yeah, that's the Prutny area. This happened a bit ago. This happened on like the 28th or something. The video came out on the 29th.
What I found interesting is that only 2 days later, a lot of the other mappers noticed that video. I don't remember what channel I followed to find it, but it seemed to be redistributed something like 2 days later, and now everyone updated their maps based on that.
I don't know what channel I got it from, but I got it before other people. Oh, this is not the wow. I got it from Truha, apparently. This is not the channel that we usually go to for info, is it? This is not one of our typical channels for geolocating.
Oh, but that's also not the only video.
No,
There's
it's
like the
not.
Russian assault in itself was also
This had
yeah, but
this had most of the assault.
yeah, it did.
Anyway, that's where I got the video. And then there's this other video as well of Russia attacking um, this forest up the side of this forest here. Anyways, that's more or less all the news that I got. There was this minor, well, maybe not minor. There's this Ukrainian advance near Verbova. They took back positions that Russia recently captured from them, and in Krinky, um, Ukraine has developed a foothold in what is described as Western Krinky. Apparently,
Yeah, and Romanov is not happy.
no, they're very upset. I I love like the cope of it is that I read this morning that they're like, yeah, Ukraine captured those positions, but that just lets us kill more of them, right?
Yeah, I guess.
It's like, yeah, we lost it on purpose, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Also, you talked about those D30s earlier. What I found interesting already, I think 3 or 4 days ago, they were talking about a surprise visit to the Kherson right bank, which wasn't planning. And I assume that maybe that's what those D30s were for. So maybe they just wanted to flatten the entire area. But they made it sound like they could be planning something else. And I was really waiting for them to be that stupid.
It'd be interesting. Man, if I were to guess where Russia would cross, I think it would be here. I think
Why? Because it's the stupidest idea?
I just think they really want Ochakiv. I think they just really want it. I think this is like why bother with Kherson? Been there, done that. I don't know. This is what my gut tells me. I think they've been moving resources here recently. I don't know if you've noticed, but they've been pushing resources into the Kinburn Peninsula. They've been increasing their shelling in this area. They've been putting like more infantry here. I don't know, dude. I just kind of have the feeling that this would be the way to go. That they would go. Not that it would be smart or anything. And there are like smaller steps you could take in the meantime. Like you could take this little island just for fun, I guess. I don't know. They've tried to attack Ochakiv before. Um, the hilarious consequences. Nobody survived. There were never survivors. It went really bad. But I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I think there's 2 more things to mention.
Okay.
One is obviously the boat.
Yeah, there's a boat.
Yeah, there was a boat, and it
it
went somewhere.
It did that.
So now there's no boat anymore.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Six drones versus a boat or a ship, really. Yeah, it was
And
just
some of those drones never attacked, right? I think we see that 4 of them, if I remember correctly, attacked, and some of them stayed back and watched the entire thing and giggled.
I don't know. I think one of them may have been destroyed or disabled. I'm not sure, but they did the old classic. They went for the propulsion, and then they poked it in the side, and then when they made a hole, they poked the hole, and they just kept poking the hole, and then the hole got too big. Classic.
Look, we mentioned boats and exit joints. Exit, boat news. She's still muted. Okay, let's give her a moment.
How many Ukrainians are in Krinky? Not that many. I would be surprised if it's a company. I think it's a platoon, probably.
What I think is that they are very careful not to let us know how many are there.
Yeah.
For a good reason.
Now, it seems that they're now in 2 places. I assume that there's a platoon in each. That is my baseline assumption. There's another interesting news recently that involved Crimea and missiles, but this time airplanes. They claim to a general may have been wiped out by an airplane, by a scalp.
Yeah, there's one thing about that general. That might not be entirely correct.
Okay.
So I also read it, and I thought, cool, makes sense. But the thing is that one of the accounts which was stating or claiming that some particular name was killed, he was talking about a commander of a squadron. He was not talking about general with the same name, and some people probably Googled that name and found the general and then assumed that it must be that general. So there might be some sort of confusion about that name being, 2 different persons, which could both be there, to be fair. But apparently the one wiped out is not the general.
Well, that's unfortunate. I mean,
but where's Gerasimov?
Yeah. I personally store my generals right next to my airplanes, like just like right under them. Like they live under it like a little tent, protects them from the weather.
Yeah, and I think what was generally hit, I think most people agree that it's some sort of radar complex which is also mostly underground. So that strike looks like it has been quite successful, and you can even see the missile coming in. So anyone who hasn't seen the video, there are a couple of people who posted the slowed down footage. So that's really interesting. And now Exit has unmuted herself, so she can talk boats.
We sunk a ship. It's so exciting. Okay, I didn't have anything to do with it, but really freaking exciting.
You got to watch it.
I totally got to watch it. I'm really sad. I've been so busy today and I haven't gotten to watch the slowed down video or the full videos. But I know somebody who has watched the full videos, and they are currently working on a geolocation they're going to post soon based off the stars. And I think that is the coolest thing in the entire world. So Gek, when you learn to geolocate by the stars, you will have surpassed the Almighty.
Yeah, it will also mean that I have given up on my life.
Yeah, you can't. You'd have to look up and down from then on.
Oh yeah. No.
I mean, there's one guy in DevMon's Discord who's really good at, even with the shadows. Like, he's so good at that. I typically post, and then I just hope that he jumps in and tells me at what time of the day that was and what direction that tree line is with certainty. Because I always assume it should be in that direction, but he can give you basically degrees of angle in that tree line. It's amazing.
It's totally amazing. Anyways, this ship, there's a whole bunch of things going on about the ship that I think are a little bit distracting. So I'll maybe mention them so that people are aware of them. The day before this ship was hit, there was a multitude of ships in approximately the same area as where this ship was hit. One of them was releasing smoke. We're not sure if that was intentional or not. One of them was moving really fast in a circle, which is kind of weird for a ship to do. I have some personal theories about that. I think it was probably just a training mission because Russia has talked a lot about doing USV training missions to learn how to defend them better. And it would be very much like Ukraine to target them directly after that training. So personally, I think that's what that is. We really don't have any evidence to say exactly what it is. So those pictures are out there. We don't know what they mean. There's no real evidence to say what they mean. They are specifically not this ship. I have confirmed with a number of people that this ship was specifically sunk the night after those were on the satellite. And so Budanov, it was a intelligence GRU. Which one is it? I always mix those two up.
GRU, I think.
I am
Thanks.
way too dyslexic to tell the difference.
Exactly. Like, I don't even try most of the time. I'm like, yeah, it was defense intelligence. I have no idea what the acronym is. But anyways, it was their operation. They sent 6 USVs that we know actually hit the ship. If you watch the video, the thing that I find most interesting about the entire video, and this is what I'm excited to watch for on the longer version, is that you see people on top of the ship, you see people moving around on top of the ship, you see the ship firing at you. But as the ship or the USVs that are kind of watching around after the fact, as they're scanning the water, and you can tell that they're like very clearly scanning the water to see what's going on, kind of assess the situation, you can't see any people in the water. There's no like flailing about. There's no lifeboats. There's no anything really. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it's indicative that they may have a bigger issue and may have lost a lot of sailors based on what we don't see in the video. So I think that's one thing that's worth kind of pointing out and looking for as you're going through it, because the loss of manpower is just as important as losing the actual ship. There's a whole bunch of people that have broken down how they targeted the ship. The first thing they did was or at least it appears that the first thing that they did was target the back of the ship and the rudder and basically take out the steering capacity. And then they hit the side of the ship exactly where the engine room should be. Looks like they hit it with multiple USVs, trying essentially to blow a giant hole in the side of it and sink it. Clearly, they were capable of doing that because the very last image in this lovely video that makes me so happy is the bow of the ship sticking straight out of the water. Definitely not the position that you'd want to see your ship in. So it's exciting. It's lovely. And I can't wait for more of them. I firmly believe that this is something people don't pay enough attention to. There's lots going on the ground. The front line is obviously really important, but we need to pay more attention to what is happening in the Black Sea, because fundamentally it's changing what Ukraine's economy is capable of doing by opening up the corridor for shipping. We're just seeing so many different things kind of come out of what's happening on the Black Sea. And it's just really important. Yeah, see, that's how your ship should never look. And there's no people. It's really interesting.
Yeah, now you missed the opportunity to sing My Heart Will Go On.
I don't think we want me singing on the stream. I'm pretty sure that's a poor choice on all our parts.
So, one less boat.
One less boat.
How many more are there to go?
There's a lot. So right now they've sunk 20% of the Black Sea fleet. And potentially Russia can move other ships in. Like this ship in particular is small enough that they could bring more of them down Russian rivers into the Black Sea. So it's like the 20% is not a definable, like, it's not
So-
a stat.
So
Sorry?
you're saying we could milk the entire Russian Navy? One ship at a time?
Not the entire, but definitely more than what is in the Black Sea currently, which would be hilariously funny. Yeah, there's potential for a lot more Russian ships to be sent there. None of the really, really big ones. And if they continue to have semi-drought conditions, then like during the summers, then the rivers won't be high enough that they'll actually be able to bring any of the bigger ships in there. But they currently can bring some ships of size into the Black Sea and replenish their fleet, at least to a minimum degree. And I believe there's still a couple of ships being built around the Black Sea. So those also should be kind of taken into account.
Yep. But like, how effective? Like, what was this ship even doing?
We don't know for sure. They do run patrols up and around that area of Crimea, and they have for like the extent of the war for the most part. So there's consistently Black Sea Fleet ships out and about doing things. It's just whether or not. So one of the reasons that we knew it was not entirely improbable that an attack would happen yesterday is because, unlike the rest of the winter up until now, yesterday the wave heights on the Black Sea were very, very low. Like it was calm, really calm, the entire Black Sea, which is great because that's specifically what we need to see in order for the USVs to make a trip that far over to the far side of Crimea. So we haven't seen attacks for the last couple of months because, and we've seen Russia be more capable of operating in that area because the seas have been higher and the USVs have a general range that they can operate in. What we don't know is what Ukraine has developed over the last couple of months. So they often use this kind of downtime to develop new versions of the USVs, which means that in the next couple of months, we may well see new versions of the next USV. Those next ones might be submersible. That would be a really interesting thing because it might take out some of the variability in when they can operate because they wouldn't be so likely to essentially be flooded or rolled over or anything else by a wave height. They'd be able to just kind of skim along underneath that, and that would obviously give them a way bigger opportunity range to be able to attack ships. So we don't specifically, it depends on what the ships were doing the day before. If I'm right and they were doing a training mission up there, then that ship just could have maybe been sitting there from the training mission the day before, and they decided they weren't going to sail out, or they were just going to continue on with doing some kind of exploratory stuff, or maybe they even had more training missions planned up there for that day. It kind of really depends. It's I don't have the intel, and I haven't seen anybody with the intel of exactly what they were doing up there.
I like it when they sink. How many big ships do they have left? Like ones that matter.
I would have to look that up. I don't keep that in my head very well.
They have like a few submarines. I know.
Yeah, the subs are really the most important ones, honestly, because the subs, and I was saying this to somebody yesterday, for OSINT people specifically, there are very few ways you can tell what's happening in the Black Sea, because obviously Black Sea Fleet ships don't just operate with their AIS on. So we can't like look them up on any of the ship traffic monitors. We can sometimes see ships in satellites, but like the ones the day before this ship sank, just because a ship is smoking, I mean, maybe they just started up the engine and it had some extra oil to burn off, and that's why it was smoking. It just happens to be that that's when the satellite went over, right? You don't have enough context to understand exactly. Thank you. That's super helpful. You don't have enough context to understand exactly what is happening just based on satellite images. So you've got that, and then you've got kind of like when Atesh or some of those other groups have pictures of ships that they can kind of take from just on shore, you can add that to your data, but your data sampling is fairly limited. When it comes to subs, we have even less data sampling. We can see when they're in their port berths, and that's kind of it. We can see that the P8, for instance, might be up watching for them, and we know that P8 specifically can see subs, and so that's really useful. But other than that, there's not a lot to tell us what's happening under the water, and so they potentially have the biggest risk factors because they could be doing things that we just have no ability to sense in any way. And I'm not aware that Ukraine has the ability to sense those things either. So for Ukraine, that's also a big risk, because those subs potentially could be going a lot of places that Ukraine wouldn't have the ability to target them.
So we need to sink another frigate. That's what
that's
what I'm seeing here. Or sub. I mean, obviously sinking a sub is always good, but those are hard. Let's go. Need a frigate.
Well, the subs are hard unless they're in port, in which case they're not that hard, as we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, you just fire a whole bunch of scalps at them and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. That'd be just fine with me.
See, what we need now is for an FPV drone to sink one of these.
Man, how big an FPV drone would you need? Like,
it really depends what it hits.
I don't know. You need like an FPV drone that's like the size of a medium-sized Cessna, packed with as much explosive as you can put in there.
So
and then
here's an idea. Okay, so you get a submersible, and you put the FPV drone in it, right? And you use the submersible to get within, like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 kilometers out. Then you go to the surface, you fire the FPV into the air like a missile, and then it can turn on its little engine, which I'm imagining as a jet engine because it'd be cooler, but maybe a prop. But I'm imagining a jet, and then the jet can just fly into the ship. Right? That'd be
See,
cool.
So here's where that actually could be useful. If you somehow had a submersible, which like how Ukraine is going to get a submersible to do all those things is an interesting conundrum that I'm not aware has been solved. And I good luck with that part. But anyways, let's just go with it. We'll flow with the idea. Then they launched the FPV. If the FPV could target your radar or sonar or any of those other sensing equipment so that when a scalp or anything else comes in to actually target the ship, they don't have the sensing equipment to see that that's happening. That would be really helpful. And an FPV could possibly be capable of doing such a thing, depending on the size of it. So there's like, it's not an entirely crazy idea.
I'm thinking like a jet drone with like a 1.5 meter wingspan. The wings could fold. They don't like they can fold to make it smaller. And
I'm amazed at the size of your submersible that's going to carry this across the Black Sea.
Yeah, my
And that it's not
submersible,
going to be detected.
it's going to be like the size of a torpedo, I think. I think that's how big the submersible would have to be.
How are you going to fit the FPV in there?
Well, wings will fold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It would be great. It would be like a hero, you know, a hero drone. Let me get a picture.
I totally see this as fanciful and
It'd be fun.
plausible.
It'd be like a hero. They fire it out of a little tube.
I'm just not grasping how the FPV is going to fit inside your torpedo. Because I've seen the size of those FPVs, and they're a little bit bigger than most of the torpedoes that I've seen.
Torpedoes are big. Anyway, let me like that. See? It's in a tube.
It is in a tube. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's much more. But is that big enough to take out a radar, though?
I think a drone of this size can carry. Maybe not this one, but drones that were fired like this, they carry like the same warhead as like a javelin missile.
It's not clear to me that that's big enough to do all the damage needed.
It can take out a tank.
Differently, very differently.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't put a javelin head on it. You'd put like a frag.
You need a frag head that has an offset, so it actually explodes before it hits, so that it could do the most amount of damage. Exactly like the missile that we saw hit the ship, the cargo ship that was in the Ukrainian port. If you go back and look at David Helms did a whole big thread about the battle damage for that particular ship, and it's the perfect example of the kind of munition you need to target those sensing equipment on a ship.
See, Catherine, she's saying that we could put the drone on a dolphin.
Maybe.
Just saying.
I don't know the answers to these things.
Anyways, so
No, sorry, Andrew. You you have to show something now.
what?
I just shared the Shadow just released another video from the assault, and you have to show the first 30 seconds. It's your own live reaction without having seen it before. You can show it. I promise.
Okay.
Just the first.
Get the live reaction. Okay, so this is from a few days ago.
That's the same assault, or should be the same assault south of Novo-Mikhailivka, I think.
They got into a crash.
I think that's.
Look
Is
how
it
much
the
it
first?
moved. Look how much it moved so much when it got hit.
Is that the first tank accident, tank road accident, which we had?
Dude, oh, it hit the barrel too. It just drove right through the barrel. Oh no, I like that barrel's in trouble, I think. Oh, yeah, man, this attack didn't go well.
And I haven't seen the rest of it yet, but I wanted you to really share that because I think that's a perfect positive note to end.
Yeah, I always wonder why the Russians choose to drive like this. Is this like standard? It feels like it shouldn't be standard, but they always do it. Where they have a tank in the front, and the tank's job isn't to like shoot things. I'm pretty sure his job is to hit landmines. I think that's his job. Because the forward tank, it drives in, it goes in the big arc, and then it like drives into the other vehicles in the column. And they always seem to like almost crash, like every single time they almost crash, and this time they actually crashed. I don't get it. Like I don't understand why, like why does the tank that like they send one tank that goes in the wrong direction? Is it just that they always have an idiot? Is it just always there's an idiot? But it's always the front tank. It seems intentional. I don't get it.
Maybe they try to take turns.
Oh, it's your turn to be the idiot this time.
You take the lead. I did my part.
I would understand it if they were all driving in the same direction. But the lead tank like drives in the wrong direction. Like it's like every like okay, so like in Avdiivka it was even more obvious. They would have the lead tank go out in this big arc, and the other vehicles wouldn't follow him. Like the tank would go out into the arc and come back, and instead of the other vehicles following him, they would go like the other way through the arc. Like they would go like the wrong way. I don't get it. It's weird to me. It just seems like they're like they're trying to crash, and this time they crashed.
Oh boy, I know how the video continues now, and I think it's pretty much the equivalent, and we probably saw all those losses from the other video from 72nd. But oh boy, is it nice to see.
Okay. All right.
It's really a good one.
Well, I'll watch it later. Anyways, I think that's the stream, everybody. And here's a hero drone I wish Ukraine had, because I think it would make a really big difference. But they don't have it. So, anyways, thank you, Exit, for coming, and thank you, Gick, and thank you, everybody who came and listened. And you can, if you liked it, you can share it with people. That'd be cool.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.